Thank you, Maria. Hello, everyone. Welcome to VCTV, the Venture Capital TV from LaToken. Myself, Sunny Mohanty. I'm the Regional Director of LaToken based here in Singapore. So today's panel is on biotech and medtech and the investments around it. We have three great speakers from three different regions. So I'd like to start with our newest speaker who just joined VCTV for this session, Jordi. Hi, Jordi. How are you
Hello.
today?
Very good. Thank you for welcoming me.
Great, Jordi. Can you please help introduce yourself to our audience?
For sure. So I am the co-founder and managing director of a company called Venture Lab, which has over 15 years dedicated to building what we call programs, but it is support for high-tech entrepreneurs. So by this, we have a series of tools which we work with public-private partners, including VentureKicks. So we have a few flagship initiatives, just to mention VentureKicks, a pre-seed fund. We invest 5 million per year into early stage, seed stage startups in Switzerland. So it's really pre-seed and seed. We have another program, which is a national training program with InnoSwiss, which is the national agency in Switzerland. We have a venture leaders program where we do roadshows, international roadshows with teams. And we also, through this program, so either fly Swiss teams abroad, we go to San Francisco, Boston with a life science team. Of course, this year a little bit suspended, and unfortunately, we do things online, but it's been done for 15 years. And we also welcome international teams coming from India, Africa, Brazil, so quite a bit of activities. And here today, so VentureKick being one of our key initiatives, that's the one that I am, I would say, probably mostly sharing experience with. About 1/3 of our pipeline is on life science, MedTech, BioTech, across the board. So that's mostly what we are active in.
Excellent. Thank you, Jordi, and welcome to VCTV. I'm sure our audience are going to hear a lot of insights from you today. So next we have Anup. Anup has been a regular speaker on VCTV. Anup, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, thank you, Sunny. Always a pleasure to be on your panel and on LaToken.
Great, same here. Just for those ones who don't know you, Anup, please help them, introduce yourself and tell what you're doing in the space.
Sure. So I'm Anup Jain. I'm a managing partner at Uberized Venture Partners. We're based here in India. We're an early stage VC fund, which is tech-based. We invest across sectors, but health tech and MedTech happens to be one of our focus sectors. Very proud to share that one of our early healthcare investments 5 years ago is soon going to be a unicorn. The name is called PharmEasy. It's the sort of Amazon of pharmaceuticals in India, has a telehealth platform as well. So we're making some strides here. And health tech will continue to be a focus for us. Our Misfits Acceleration Program takes companies that we invest in, which could be checks ranging up to $1 million at the seed and pre-A stage, through a very focused program over 6 months to make them highly successful, where we interact with not just mentors from Uberized, but also mentors from the industry to help the founders, progress their companies to a successful level and raise funds from bigger investors. So very happy to be here and would love to hear everybody's point of view and gain knowledge.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Anup, for that short intro. Last but not least, Fabio, welcome back. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm very well. Glad and honored to be back on these events that you organize. Very, very fond of them.
Great. Please start with your short introduction.
I'm an economist by training. I'm a PhD from the University of Chicago, PhD in economics. I work at the International Monetary Fund. I worked at the European Central Bank. I worked at Goldman Sachs. Then I moved to the Arabian Peninsula, and I worked in Qatar, Dubai, and in Muscat, Oman, as a chief strategist of the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the Sultanate of Oman. Now, I'm a partner of an investment bank and asset management company, which has has been active in assisting companies to list on the OTC market, over-the-counter market in New York. Almost all of them innovative companies in various areas, MedTech, BioTech, FinTech, technology, cybersecurity, and so on and so forth. We, as a rule, but with some exceptions, prefer companies which are in the growth stage. So innovative companies that have proven their business model. They have a portfolio of clients that are about to break even or have already passed that stage. So we help them to raise funds to fund their growth. And we also have a fund dedicated to these innovative companies, which we call Industry 4.0, which is a bit of a European-centric denomination. And we take positions in the companies, we take stakes in companies which we take public on the OTC market. So we are also investors, not only advisors.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Fabio, for that introduction. So we all set. The reason I think this today's topic, biotech, medtech, is very, very critical and crucial because we are facing a health crisis of, I think, a century. I mean, we haven't seen this before, such a health crisis. So I would like to know about how, each of you, what are your perspective on the support that we are getting from your companies, from the government in terms of investments into the space. I would like to start with Jordi first. Hi, Jordi. So can you tell us, so after the pandemic, what happened with the investments into the space, especially on medtech and biotech, considering that we are facing a health crisis that we haven't seen before?
Okay. Yes, so happy to jump in first in this. And I have to say, and here I'm going to talk, it's differentiated across the world, specifically about Switzerland. We were very positively surprised at how the investment market has been maintained. We have heard that in other places actually it decreased a lot. And if you look Switzerland, actually, when we looked at our first semester figures, they are just as strong as what we had in 2019. We released our semester report. Of course, it doesn't tell you how it's going to be maintained over the years, but I mean, we passed 700 plus million investments into companies. I mean, here I'm talking of as a whole into startup and venture capital in Switzerland, which is just as strong as what we had in 2019, which was already a record year. So very good news, I have to say, on that front. Here is really the investment, how the pandemic, and a lot of it went into life science actually. One thing that I have to say when you talk, of course, with other life science investors is, yes, there is some delay and there is impact, but most of the projects we're talking about, and here we're talking medtech, biotech, are actually long-term projects. I mean, they are going for many years of research. Many of them had some strong funding, so they really had the possibility to continue, I would say, what they were doing with some delays, but the investor really so far have kept confidence. So I have seen some companies having some additional bridge rounds or at least being well supported. I'm actually very positively surprised. When the crisis started, we were really fearing that there would be a drop, like we've seen. I think we went through. We all have, I can't say gray hair, unfortunately, but definitely we've seen 2007. I went through the bubble as an entrepreneur. It was different field, was ICT, but still we've seen this frozen time. So now maybe just I want to leave, of course, the word to the others. But one thing that was, of course, also very strong was government support came in with grants across Europe. European grants have been continuing very strongly. Many of our companies benefited from the EIC, the European incubator, the accelerator that granted them support to continue development. And of course, there were some specific companies who were able to actually benefit from some push. We have a company developing respiration support. Ventilators was talked a lot. So it's not only support, it is re-education of the lungs. Stimit and to mention them. And I think that that's, of course, those ones more specifically benefited from the focus that was put on this specific challenge, this pandemic, which came in with breathing eradication and other challenges. So maybe a long answer, but I would say so far positive, particularly in this field. What we haven't seen, however, at least around here, are and I think it's across Europe, it's the mega rounds. You know, we had last year a few companies really what we would call 100 million plus in terms of funding. And I think those ones have strongly decreased in Switzerland. I've seen that also across Europe. And it's really one thing which sends a signal that definitely people want to support companies as we are confident, yet investing right now 100 million plus into companies, this is something that less people or at least less investors are willing to do, rather do, I would say, smaller round, move forward and see what happens. That would be my take for the moment.
Great. So if I understand correctly, the investors are playing safe. No, it's not.
So, at least, I mean, I think it was hard to tell an investor that he's playing it safe when he's betting 20 or 30 million, you know, I mean, that's definitely, and even at the start of any company, we're in a very uncertain period. I can also, I mean, I talk on behalf of VentureKick. I'm also a business angel on another hand, but I mean, as VentureKick, talking to a lot of investors, a lot of uncertainties still. So I think playing it safe, I wouldn't use it. They are acting, I would say, confident and optimistic. That's what I would rather say. Yes, with some measure. So not also, you know, overstepping and saying, let's put 200 million now. I'm saying this, having still seen some of them. It's not fully gone. I don't have the full detail in the US, for example, but in Europe, there has been a decrease of these mega rounds.
Right. I think thank you, Jordi, because we are quite like few months into this pandemic. I think we have, I think everywhere around the world, we have accepted this to be the new norm. And I hear a lot of deals closing over Zoom. And, you know, this is going to be business as usual for at least this year. That's what I can say. But anyways, thank you, Jordi. I'm going to come back to you with more questions. Then the next speaker I would like to hear from is Anup. Hi, Anup.
Hey, Sunny. Hey.
Hey, Anup. Tell our speakers what are the recent investments like you've done in last 3-6 months? What's the pace of investments? What's the ticket sizes? Has anything impacted your decision to make investments?
I think what's got impacted, Sunny, initially has got completely covered up in the last 2 months, I would say, as everyone sort of accepted that this is the way things are going to be. And the good thing is, in a macabre sort of way, if I may call it, everyone's in the same boat. So everyone is therefore extremely open to doing business meetings all over again. Nobody is waiting for those airports to open and say, okay, I'm going to be able to fly across and meet that person. No, I think there's a realization that everyone has got to move the business forward, and therefore this meeting over Zoom calls is going to be the way to go. So we don't see this as a barrier at all to making investments. We've made investments in the last 3 months to 6 months. Of course, we've doubled down on our existing health tech investment, which is BioTech. BioTech is a patient engagement company in the area of chronic conditions. It helps diabetics, and empowers diabetics to play an active role in their own management of their own condition with doctors and caregivers. It's got a proprietary IoT device, which, unlike the AccuCheck and OneTouch, connects with their cloud platform. So it virtually puts everything in a person's fingertips. And concepts like these, as we've seen again, I draw a parallel what's happened in the US very recently. So virtual care and patient engagement merged into form a big company. So the Teladoc and Livongo merger, which just recently happened and created a $18.5 billion behemoth in the area of health tech. It's a sign of times to come. I would say that, last 10 years was a lot about e-commerce, was about mobility, was about making things convenient. But the pandemic has made a lot of focus come into health. The next 3 or 4 years are going to be about EdTech, gaming, and health tech. And we will surely double down on these sectors. And being virtual with founders is not really a barrier at all. In fact, everyone is viewing this as a very productive engagement. Many people are saying, I don't need to fly again, unless it's so important.
Yeah, I totally agree. These are the very consistent responses that I hear from investors. We don't have to fly again. We don't have to spend that time on commuting from one country to other country or flying, and we get to speak with other people from different countries in just comfort of the room of your house. So these are very consistent positive response, which is good. Thank you, Anup. And thanks for mentioning that M&A that happened during the pandemic, which is very, very positive news as well. Thank you. So Fabio, again, the same question to you. What are the recent investments that you've seen in the last 3-6 months, and what are the pace of these investments since March this year? What has changed in terms of the intensity of the investments in the MedTech and the biotech space? Fabio, we can't hear you because you are on mute.
I was saying definitely there is a lot more interest in this space, MedTech, pharma, biotech, since the epidemic started. But the trend was already there. I mean, the innovation in the healthcare sector in general is one of the next big things. We are on a cusp of new treatments, new drugs, new devices, and so on and so forth. And we had already seen this before the pandemics. We've been looking at things like robot surgeon, devices to measure pain, drugs for treatment of degenerative conditions such as Alzheimer or Parkinson. What has changed to some extent during these pandemics is the application, obviously, to the treatment of COVID. For example, we're looking into the treatment that would improve the oxygenation for athletes. And now this has been the same idea has been applied to COVID patients, because obviously they have pulmonary problems, and it has proven to be quite effective. In general, I think that the improvement, the long-lasting improvement coming from this, from the reaction to the pandemics, will be in the area of testing new treatments, because obviously all the vaccines are on a fast track. Typically, to bring a new drug from research to the marketplace takes years. Now this process has been cut to months, and people will start questioning whether the FDA and other regulatory agencies around the world have been serving the general public well with their overcautious approach. So I think that one of the long-lasting effects of the fight against the COVID will be a rethinking of procedures for the licensing of innovations in this space, both in Europe and in the US, probably all around the world, because the FDA, in a sense, is the standard bearer of this, is the sort of the gold standard of certification, and therefore this will have an impact worldwide.
Fabio, good points. You just mentioned about the vaccinations, and I got too excited. What do you, what's your anticipation? Like, when do we get a vaccination for the coronavirus?
There are like hundreds of vaccines under study, and about, I don't know, some people say 5 or 6, others say 10 to 12, which are on the last leg. We know that the Russian President Putin has announced the vaccine, but that, in my view, is more a propaganda stunt than a true breakthrough. So I would imagine that if this phase 3 is completed for 3 or 4 vaccines by the end of September or October, we could start seeing a mass production in January, let's say, maybe at the earliest in December. But we read about mass production of 2 billion doses. Mm-hmm. Now, if the vaccine needs 2 shots, that mm-hmm. means in some of the vaccines might need 3 shots. This means that there will be a shortage. So less than 1 billion people will be able to get the vaccine. So next year, it will be a competition among companies that have developed the vaccine, but more crucially amongst healthcare system nationwide to deliver this vaccine and to set up all the infrastructure to vaccinate population of tens of millions of people. We have to see, by the way, what will be the repercussion, the secondary effects, the consequence on a large population, which will be different from what you can find out from a phase 3 study, obviously on a limited number of people. So it will be interesting to see next year how the science aspect will evolve, how the health authorities' response will be organized, and how the general public acceptance and delivery of the vaccine and delivery of the shots will be handled.
Great. Thank you, Fabio. Thank you for sharing those insights with us. I'm very hopeful about that. Thank you. I have a question a second round of question for all of you, starting with Jordi. So you have like a bunch of startups under your portfolio. Could you give us an example of one of your portfolio companies who was able to pivot, like move from where they were to a space where they had something to provide a solution for the pandemic in terms of health tech and MedTech? Like, they could pivot very fast and could amaze the investors, and you were really appreciative of what they did.
Sure, and it was they even actually they made the press. Just before jumping, because I might mention it's not purely biotech, but it's related to health measure. Maybe a small reaction on the speed of accepting the vaccine. As I go along with Fabio, I think people will look at this process and see what can be improved. I, however, strongly believe in this field, and that if we would come, that people would lose confidence and we would have a mistake on what comes on the market, I would say that would be really damageable. I mean, that's been a big discussion. We already have signs of resistance of people accepting this, and the worst would be that people refuse to say, okay, we don't take vaccine because we don't trust the system, because the system has been tweaked, because et cetera. And I think that's a concern that we should consider. And I know in all the discussions and the debates, and I go along with you, people will be really looking at saying what's the best way we can do that this is something in the long term for the healthcare, and for the life science market, that we maintain this trust, because that's one thing that a lot of people are worried about in the long term. Coming back to your question, Sonny, I'm happy to come back, but I know it's not the debate, but I just wanted to mention that, rebouncing on what you were mentioning. I would take an example, not directly, I would say, in the life science, because these are long-term projects. We typically have a company called Technis. Technis is a company whose original business are smart floors. So they are able to have floors which are sensitive. They are able to do countings, and they are able to do all sorts of intelligence, including in healthcare. Actually, they have an application in health where they can know, I mean, typically if you have it in a room, they can measure the gaze and the path of the people, so they can know if there is a change. They can measure if somebody falls on the floor, etc. And during the pandemic, you remember one of the big things was how many people are in any shop or in any closed environment. And they were able to extremely fast reuse their product to simply count with a much better accuracy than cameras and that any other solution. Typically, you know, those small lights counters which people were coming in, how many people were coming into supermarkets? This allowed them to deploy extremely fast and new solutions, for which we published recently. They raised 3 million, so it was quite an achievement during the pandemic. So really strong in that case of rethinking the business model, repositioning the company, and being able to really benefit still, because actually their main market, to mention, was in events. That's where they have a lot of intelligence, because they know in events, you know, people coming in, coming out, and they are able to do all sorts of counts and intelligence around that. But then, of course, the event market, as everyone knows, went actually bust, I mean, or at least disappeared, and is now slowly picking up. And I think there will be in the event market, because the event market will be impacted long term, is something where they will have quite a few, I would say, still applications in that direction. So we've seen core technology rethinking the approach, the offering, the business model. That would be, I think, one of the examples we had across several.
Oh, Jody, I really like this example where you said this startup, they pivoted from events hosting company to providing this analytics, like how many footfall are happening into a mall or a shop, you know, all those places where people are visiting in numbers, which is a good thing. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
they moved literally to retail market. Actually, they went from events to retail. They went from health to retail. Full different market. Full different. Even the product evolved. Very, very nice.
Oh, excellent! That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that with us. Anup, I have the same question for you. Any startup under your portfolio that has amazed all the investors by the way they just swiftly moved from one place, one industry to another industry because of the pandemic?
So we have PharmEasy, which is a pretty large business, you know, and they were, and they still continue to be a large marketplace, which is connecting pharmacies with consumers. And they were doing this extremely well. But, you know, during the pandemic, they added on a massive telehealth, you know, variable capacity platform, so to speak, because people couldn't actually come out of their homes to meet doctors, and they needed prescriptions. Without prescriptions, you cannot order on the platform. So how do you get that? And during this period, as we all know, consumers have also been quite wary of visiting medical centers and hospitals for the fear of contracting the infection themselves. So telehealth came as a big boon during this period, and they actually spruced up their entire capacity and became famous overnight for a large tele-prescription platform where you can consult a doctor and get a e-medical prescription and get American medicine on the way to your home right on the spot. Really crunching this entire broken experience forever in the consumer's mind. I can't think of a single consumer who today can pick up a phone or get onto a Zoom call like this, can meet up with their doctor, explain their condition, get a prescription wired to them by email, uploaded on the platform simultaneously while they are, even facing the doctor and haven't said bye to the doctor as yet. And the medicines are already on the way and you're on a prescription, which is certified. And that becomes your health record, right? And thereafter, a platform like Beto, for example, takes over and gives you the nudges and notifications to take those medicines on time to keep your chronic condition in absolute check. And that's extremely reassuring for your caregivers who are given alerts as well that, look, here's your dad or your mom, and they were supposed to take a medicine at a certain point of time, and they've indeed taken it. So I think these are the sort of things that are happened that we have seen with our own eyes, which are transforming healthcare. Previously, I think consumers were not empowered participants in the delivery and the receipt of healthcare from various stakeholders in the ecosystem, whether it's insurance companies, doctors, hospitals, pharmacies, and test laboratories. Now, all of this is being sort of Uberized, if I may call it, and placed on a platform, which is what the merger is showing between Teladoc and Livongo, which is where and the virtual care and digital patient engagement is kind of coming together and giving an ecosystem which the consumer is in control of. So you can build your profile, of course, data, etc., privacy, all of those will be questions. But yes, I mean, the long and short of it, those are companies that we've seen, and they've really prospered. They've been growing 10% month on month based on this changes that they've made.
Great, thank you, Anup. Because before COVID-19, I have actually seen concepts from founders of creating this Uberized ecosystem, where they connect the pharmacy, the doctors, the insurance companies, the payment providers, because all into one, but that never sort of got that attention because, people were still visiting doctors. They always wanted face-to-face, sort of interaction with the doctor. Tell me one thing if I missed it. So before coronavirus, this startup was just connecting pharmacies, is it? Or
yes, it was largely a marketplace. It had the facility for calling and getting consultant online, but most consumers would largely upload their prescriptions, which they had from their own favorite doctor, which they used to get and renew by way of visiting them again and again. Now it is an integrated platform of complete care delivery, where you can choose your doctor, you can get your prescription for the first time or renewed if you're a chronic user of that particular pharmaceutical. You can get diagnostic tests organized as well. So if you wanted to get your liver function test done and a kidney function test done, you can get that done in the comfort of your home. And you can have the test uploaded on the platform. So it's not like you're going to the laboratory, which used to be the paradigm earlier, that you would go and by 5 p.m. your report would be there, or it would be emailed to you and you would follow up on a phone call, things like that. But that doesn't need to get done. And indeed, if you need something more than that, then you have platforms like Vito, which is providing even insurance. They worked out a diabetic insurance package, which is very difficult to get outside, but they put it actually on a subscription plan, whereby you can get complete care, including insurance, which is very hard to actually assess and get from insurers for diabetics. So I think these are two sort of examples that we've seen at close hand. They've been more, but this is really something which talks to your point of making that pivot and transformation.
I know. The best. I hope everybody can hear me fine. I mean, I'm audible clearly, right?
So I hear you lower, just as I mentioned. I mean, your sound came at least lower in my side, just as a side note.
Oh,
yes, it could increase, Sunny. Yeah, you're a bit lower than what you started off with.
Okay, am I better now? Am I better? I'm close to the camera now. Am I better?
A little bit.
Okay, I have to check my technical things before I go live tomorrow. So Anup, how long did it take? Sorry if I'm asking you too many questions, but how long did it take for them to move from where they were to where they are now within this pandemic time? How long did it take, and how much money was pumped into to create that integrated platform? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I think, look, this is mostly OpEx and tech. So it is manpower, but before the manpower, the tech had to be ready. So it took a period of 6 weeks of tech resources, which had to, in fact, many of them were working from home, and they had to do the wiring of the platform, so to speak, before the manpower was hired. to boost the capacity because the demand from the consumers was coming in. So all of this happened in a space of about 8 weeks. It was crash and burn in that sense, but it was the demand of the hour, and the business has really benefited from that. Similarly, in the case of Beto, they saw their consumer acquisition costs going down. Consumers were more compliant than ever before in terms of measuring their blood sugar and posting the readings. In fact, the WHO standard for measurement is about 2.5 times a week, but those guys were doing 5 or 6 times a week, which is highly compliant and is extremely good behavior on part of a diabetic to actually measure their sugar. So often, many of them don't do that, and that's why that explains the WHO standard as well in that sense, which is recommended. So they saw that patient engagement, they saw the NPS scores going up, and this encouraged the startup to invest the time and money sort of required to make that happen. During this period, Beto, of course, raised funds from a US-based investor, which is healthcare focused as well, in which we and other investors who were already invested in the company participated as well. We invested another $1 million into the company as well. The round is getting closed as we speak, but the company has been ramping up capacity in this regard. In fact, there were versions coming through from on the App Store virtually every week. The app was getting updated. So that's a sign of how tech development was really speeded up during this period to respond to the pandemic and the demands of consumers on these platforms.
Great insight. So great insight. I think, Anup, this is one of the best example I have heard in the health tech space who could pivot in 6 weeks. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Fabio, I would like to know from you a successful use case or a successful example of from your portfolio or a startup from your portfolio that pivoted to something more meaningful to serve the need to counter the virus.
Unfortunately, I don't have a success story such as the one Nup mentioned. We have seen some attempts to address the concerns or the needs that arose from the epidemics. But in the among the companies we're following or we're planning to invest, as I said, we have only this treatment. Not treatment. I mean, it's a device that improves the oxygenation of athletes and can be used for COVID patients. And another one which is essentially a ring. You like a wedding ring you put on your finger, and it measures constantly the oxygenation and if you're breathing correctly, if there is enough oxygen in your blood system. So these are the only 2 examples I can think of in the healthcare space. Indirectly, I think we will see definitely an interest in all sort of devices or tech improvements for interactions, like non-direct interaction with hospitals, with doctors, with healthcare professionals. And I think this is in general an improvement because, even for minor issues, the idea that you have to go to a hospital and clog the system because, I don't know, you have a stomach ache. I mean, somebody must start thinking that it's inefficient. The same if you have, like minor ailments, especially for elderly people. The idea that you have to physically get out of your home, go on, take a bus or whatever, a taxi, a metro, go to the hospital for something that can be treated online. I think that will be another important legacy of this of what we've learned during this pandemics.
Fabio, I've got a question because I'm very curious. So because the ring that you wear, does it come with a manual to tell you what are the healthy levels of oxygen that should be in your blood as compared?
Yeah, I think it's like a 94. I don't know if in Europe it's 94, at least 90, 94, 95. Maybe more, possibly more. So there are like green, yellow, and red levels. So it will be quite easy for the typical user to ascertain whether everything is fine or if there is a problem. But for example, sometimes this could be useful even for children. No, sometimes they have a cough, they don't breathe well, and it would be useful to have a device that tells you whether it's something serious and you need to seek medical treatment or it's just a cold.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I'm really fascinated to have something like that. So I just, as I said in the beginning, I would really want this session to be a little engaging between the speakers as well. Has anybody here has got any question for your co-speaker? A burning question that you really wish to ask? Because you're from different geographies, different countries. So
happy to have actually a question because we heard, of course, and we had the same thing in Switzerland, that a lot of business was conducted online. I'm trying to get a sense whether it was ongoing business, meaning, series and investments between people who knew themselves and typically investing in companies they knew, or it was also new investments, like starting from scratch. Because one thing, we have been being in this very early stage phase and then having international roadshow where we sometimes take companies who are in seed or series A series. It's their first exposure going to the US or to have roadshows in China. And we did quite a bit of online. We seemed, or at least the experience has been, that continuing business with companies that you already invested went very well, continuing on online tools. Trying to convince investor to invest in a company they had never seen before, met for the first time. They all showed strong interest, saying, wow, what you do, but we need to see the premise. We need to meet you at least once before we take a commitment to invest into your companies. So I was wondering if this is also what you've experienced, or if in your case you were able to really conduct, maybe Anup or Fabio, because you were mentioning business went ongoing, were you in deals which were from the first, never met the company, you liked it, you said, okay, I see enough of what I have in digital, whether documents, video, whatever, and we move forward with this?
Anup?
I can answer for myself. Yeah, we have moved everything, in remote mode. So we, yes, have met several companies for the first time, some of which we are interested in investing. Ideally, the data room can be analyzed completely from a remote location. Now, I think at some point, probably when you have to draft the term sheet, when you have lawyers involved, it might be useful to be, in the same room. But I think that it can be done. I mean, if somebody is fairly well organized, I would say everything can be done in remote. I would say that we have increased actually our productivity because the whole process has been moved in through video conferencing and emails, other means of electronic communication. So I've always been a big fan of video conferencing because I thought that, taking a plane and wasting 2 days for a 2-hour meeting was a nonsense. Now, I see that everybody has realized that, and I'm happy. My experience so far has been extremely positive, and as I said, the productivity has increased, the number of deals that we can analyze has increased, and the whole process has been made much more efficient.
So basically, to Georgie's question, so you have invested into a very brand new startup that you have never met before in person.
We haven't completed the process because it's a process that takes months. It's a listing on the OTC market involves a number of formal steps, but yeah, I mean, we ideally can do it without meeting in person. For example, we have a company in Qatar at the moment, and that has been, we didn't feel the need to meet in person and go to Qatar. Same for companies that are, in places like Switzerland, to give an example, or Spain.
Thank you, Fabio. I mean, Anup, I think to answer Jodi's question.
Yeah, I think, Jodi, you asked a very pertinent question. So it didn't start off like that. Nothing was automatic. And you're right that when you have previous relationships, things tend to move much faster. However, having said that, I think if you take the entire phase between April to now, in the latter half of the phase, one has been more comfortable, or rather having accepted the reality that things are going to be like that. So am I going to stop investing, right? I've got to take that leap of faith. And if the person on the other side, like Fabio was saying, is well organized, and they are good presenters, I think one can make that leap. And we will shoot term sheets during this period. Of course, the process takes a bit longer because you got to, have still complete all the paperwork and make sure that all the, all the fine lines and all of that is seen between the lawyers and everything before you seal the agreements and wire the funds. But I think the whole situation has demanded that all of us become better presenters virtually and not just remain excellent people to converse with on a face-to-face situation, because we don't know when that's going to come. I think, and the very fact that we are here, on a webinar and being able to conduct this, and people have got used to this, and I think people have got fatigued by it as well. But nevertheless, this is the way of life. So I think we've had that, but I can understand that in your case, I don't know, because, investing in the early stage and across borders, that becomes a bit tough. I haven't seen that happen too easily, unless there has been a contact or a relationship from before. That definitely helps, because you've got to have trust between investors to be able to do that. We've had up rounds, like I mentioned, for Beto, for example, where a US-based healthcare fund invested, but the relationship was older between the founders and the fund. Therefore, we were able to invest another $1 million into this round as well. Some of our companies, they're seeing investments from other investors, even angels, purely virtually, and with no existing relationships in place. So I think domestically, it is easier. Cross-border is more difficult. Where you've had a previous relationship, it is better. But, I think we got to all move on. And investing is all about risk anyway. So here's another risk.
I'm fully with you. I was just wondering if you observed also this mechanism, which seems at the end quite natural. I mean, for us at least, it was, yes, really very much within known networks, but expanding networks. I have been doing pitch in R for the past 3 months, and as you said, I mean, as much as I think the impact on productivity is phenomenal, much less planes. And on the other hand, of course, you end up like with this. We had typically many exposure, hundreds of participants, and then you can sense this slowdown or a longer process when it comes to unknown networks. Within known networks, then I think we all experience, and that's great, this very strong acceleration.
I agree with you. I think that's that's quite the case, and maybe unless data points to the otherwise, but people are kind of hoping that maybe international flights are going to open, or I'm going to be able to fly across and do business meetings like I used to do before. I certainly think that's not going to happen immediately. And even if you're going to be able to travel allowed by the state, but is your family going to allow you to travel? Who wants to wear a PPE suit and get into a plane and get fumigated a couple of times and then arrive fresh and fragrant with the same fumigant for a business meeting? I don't know. I'm just exaggerating to drive home the fact, but I think we'll have to find other ways. Nearly all events of LPs and GPs this year, at least in the Asia side of things, and Sunny, you'll know that they've all been converted into virtual events, even though international flights are allowed to land. So events which are happening in Asia and Hong Kong and Singapore have all been converted online right from September up to November. So nobody's taken a chance. They're saying, okay, let's just know that it's virtual now, rather than having to call it off 6 weeks before the whole thing and having to restructure everything and tell everybody, okay, it's not going to be a physical event. Nobody's taking any flights. Please cancel your hotels, and it's going to be a virtual event. We'd rather take the whole thing now. So let's see. I think in the next 3 to 4 months, we might see a more, I would say, a different order of things in the investing world. Yeah, so we might see that people are getting used to it. But yes, what you're saying is right. I mean, the process is slower when the relationship is not yet established. Through a handshake of some sorts.
And I go along with you, and it probably goes with the same, at least hopeful timeline that at least for all of our international roadshows have been postponed to spring 2021, with a question mark whether we can travel. And then it's, I would say, with the hope that what Fabio had this timeline that the vaccine might be available early next year. And I think right now that's one scenario we are considering, that maybe early next year we would be in the position to have something solid enough that you can resume travel. Because one thing that we've noticed is as well, resuming travel is one thing, but being welcomed by people on site is another thing yet. You can definitely fly to Asia or to, I don't know, to the US or to India, but then doesn't mean people will be happy to see you.
Absolutely. That's a very valid point. I mean, everybody is in the fear of catching the virus. And I hear news that the new strains of virus are emerging, which are more contagious than what you've heard before. So yeah, because of those, you're right. So any other questions between the speakers? If not, I would like to ask a question. Who is looking to invest immediately, short term, in the space? Anup, are you looking to invest into, are you exploring, because we have a lot of startups in our database and our portfolio?
Yeah, I would love to do that, Sunny. So I think health is one of the key areas. We are looking at agri, gaming, health, and as key areas going forward in the next 5 years. I think the next 5 years are going to belong to these sectors, certainly from an Indian perspective. And therefore, we'd love to look at startups which are looking at funding up to $1 million, who have rolled out their product, got some early traction, and they can share this information with us. They've got the team in place, who are the founders. We do have a preference for teams which are led by at least 2 people in the founding team. It brings sort of the yin and yang together, helps the company have benefit and complementarity of different skill sets and temperaments. So we'd love to connect with startups via La Token, or and get to know more about them. Yep.
Yeah, great, Anup. So startups who are looking to invest in the areas that Anup said, you can always log into our website and check his profile out. And there's a button to pitch to Anup Jain your ideas. As he said, I mean, these are some of the criteria he's looking before he can actually talk to you. So please make sure all the boxes are ticked before you click on that pitch button on LaToken's website, where Anup Jain's profile is featured. Thank you, Anup. Jody, are you looking to invest immediately, short term? Are you exploring new startups to invest in short term, medium term?
Well, for us, we have a bit this special situation, of course, where VentureKick is very Swiss focused. So we are looking constantly. Actually, we are a constant flow. We invest across several sessions all during the year. So it's the 5 million that we're investing per year, which is sort of an ongoing rolling, evergreen mechanism. Is going to happen. I mean, or at least we have a lot of projects and lots of startups which are applying. Now, of course, for us, we don't have this international investment. Maybe as business angel, why not? I definitely will be looking, because we constantly also look. And one of the expectation has been in the early stage to see what would happen with valuations, because that's also was, of course, a question which actually, at least I would say here and across Europe, haven't been impacted a lot. They still remain at a very fairly strong level. To be seen what happens in the next month, or I would say that's really the question now till end of year, to see how all of this evolves. But definitely, I would say, if on a private, yes, or if on a VentureKick base, it's not really our international perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Jody, because obviously your profile is also getting featured on our website, and we have startups from that region that you would like to invest into. Right. So yeah, I mean, if you're happy, then obviously startups community, if you're listening to this, Jody is open for business. Thank you, Jody. Fabio, what about you? What are your plans in terms of investment, like immediately, short term, medium term?
We have a constant flow of new proposals, people who come to us for at various stages. So we don't have any particular plan to intensify or reduce our activity. It's I have to say that thanks to this improvement in efficiency, we are able to process many more proposals than when people felt that the face-to-face meeting was necessary. So, but apart from this, we, for us, it's business as usual, in the sense that we have a constant deal flow that comes to us, and COVID or non-COVID, we're open for business, and we hope to conduct our activity better than before, as I said, but with no particular change in strategy or focus or sector preferences.
Okay, great, Fabio. Your profile is up on our website as well, and any startups who's looking to pitch to Fabio specifically, you just can go to our website and check his profile and click the button, and there you go, you connect with Fabio. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, speakers. It was very engaging session today, especially each of you speaking to each other, which is good. Any last closing remarks? Thank you, Jody. Thank you for that. That thumbs up. Thank you. I would like to just take the closing remarks from each of you. I mean, Jody, to start with your thumbs up. Like, what are your closing remarks for the session tonight?
No, thank you for welcoming us. I think the closing is that, the topic today was life science, and I really see there that things will continue. I mean, health is such a long term that when we will look back, this situation will look like, an incredible phenomena. I think none of us has experienced this before, and I hope never in the future. But in any case, it was sort of an accelerator in many things, as we mentioned. And health is here to stay. So, I mean, my closing would be, yes, so all our investors were active. What will be really important is that the whole system continues, the healthcare system, the whole authorities, we mentioned them, other investors, and that the trust stays. We discussed it as well. So really, thanks for welcoming us. And we will, as investors and entrepreneurs, we anyway will adapt and we shall continue the move. So let's hope the rest of the system works along these lines.
Absolutely, Jody. Really energetic closing remarks. Thank you so much. Anup, over to you.
Yes. So I think, like Jody was saying, this is a eureka moment and if I may call it, a positive black swan event for healthcare. Healthcare has always been a broken experience for the consumer. Consumer has never been an empowered participant in their own health outcomes, right? They've had to deal with different stakeholders differently and somehow manage the outcome for themselves in the process which they wanted. Today, people are willing to talk to each other. Doctors are not so busy anymore because there's nobody patiently waiting outside their clinic. They're available for teleconsultations all of a sudden. At least in India, everybody wants to list themselves in platforms. Everyone wants to make themselves available and an equal participant in the process. And guess who's in control? It's the consumer. So I think this is a great time, in a sort of a positive way, if I may call it. While the pandemic has happened and the results have been and outcomes may not have been that fortunate, and we don't want to see this coming again. But if it results in change of habits from which empower consumers for the long term to take control of their health outcomes by having the various stakeholders and ecosystems come together with the help of startups who are stitching that platform together, I think those platforms will create a lot of value. Investors will create a lot of value by investing in these platforms and participating in that journey. We're not going to turn back from here for sure in how we're going to address our health. I think everyone's very conscious of their health nowadays and taking adequate precautions. I've never washed my hands so much in my life. Never used the sanitizer. I think they feel really dry. So I go to my friend's houses to visit or to go anywhere. First, I look for the sanitizer. I carry a sanitizer in my car. I carry a sanitizer in my office bag. This is like, the whole place is getting cleaned up, I think.
You heard the bad joke, Anup. Sorry to make it as a Swiss. Is our hands is seeing more alcohol than our liver.
That is true, actually. Yeah. I don't know if Jack Daniels is having enough alcohol available to make the real thing, but yeah, we're certainly using it on our hands. So I don't know where it's going.
I like that because that is so absolutely true. If I don't sanitize my hands as soon as I enter my home, oh, you haven't sanitized your hands, you can't enter. So it's like a lot of paranoia behind that. You're right. I mean, I carry a small, big hand sanitizer at home, a small in the bag, everywhere we go. Too much going on. Very much. Thank you for that little humor moment, Jody, as well with your that joke. Fabio, your closing remarks for the evening, for the session.
But I just want to give an advice to entrepreneurs, especially scientists and engineers that who tend to downplay the importance of finance in their business plans. They think that if something is good or is exceptional or is great, money will come. That is not true. So you need to plan. You need to plan carefully. You need to make sure that you don't find yourself in a position when you need the money yesterday. And because raising funds is a very time-consuming activity, it's very humbling. And so if you don't time well your financial needs, you're most likely end up with a bankruptcy. So my suggestion is to seek the advice before you have a problem, because when you hit the problem, it's too late.
Very good finishing lines from Fabio. Just to tell you, our audience and the startup community, all our three investors who are speakers are featured. Their profiles are featured on our website. You can always reach out to them by clicking on the pitch button, and the fee that you have to pay, which is like even less than your taxi fees both ways. Yeah, is that a minimal fee that we charge to pitch to our investor base. I mean, yes, they're open for investment in the coming future, and please feel free to reach out to you depending on what portfolios they're looking to invest into. Thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of the session. I would like to say that we run these sessions Monday to Friday, and we cover different topics. As all of you know, you've been speaking on other panels as well. FinTech blockchain was yesterday. Today is BioTech MedTech. Tomorrow we have a different topic. Anything that interests you, or anything that you think you are going to contribute in terms of speaking, or probably connecting with startups, if you're planning to invest into the startups, please reach out to me or the LaToken team, and we are happy to have you back on our panel. Thank you so much. I would like to say good night, good evening, and please be safe. Wash your hands wherever you go. Wear your mask, and just let's stay connected. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today.